Confronted my biker neighbor after he claimed our driveway, only to watch him seethe when we built a boundary fence. We moved into our new home when my daughter was just 2 months old, and I immediately sensed trouble with the neighbors. They started by parking all their vehicles, a massive truck, a Jeep, and a motorcycle, right in my driveway, filling it up completely. I tried to reassure myself by thinking they'd stop once it became obvious someone actually lived there. For a minute, it even seemed like I was right. But the guy next door still rode his motorcycle down my driveway and left it parked right in the middle, as if it were a friendly, casual habit to use my property. He would usually come and go before I arrived home from work, so I never got a chance to confront him. Then my husband deployed, and, just my luck, I broke my leg, so our car sat motionless in the driveway, a sitting duck. As soon as the neighbors saw that vacancy, they went right back to treating my driveway like it belonged to them. The neighbor even used my driveway to swap out tires on his truck, huge lifted ones, like my property was his own personal garage. For 3 long months, I seethed about it, waiting until I could finally hobble up their steps to talk to them face to face. Picture this, I'm 5 feet 2 inches, still recovering, and I have to approach a man who towers over me and radiates danger. Everything about his swagger, the way he carries himself, I don't know how else to say it, screamed time spent in jail or at the very least, short fuse. I felt nervous, but I made myself stand firm. In my politest yet most unwavering tone, I told him, I need you to move your motorcycle off my driveway. This is private property, not a shared space. I desperately hoped that would settle it. Of course, it didn't. He never really stopped. And that was just the beginning. Their living situation had its own twist. Their house was a condo, and they stayed on the top floor. They decided to leave their trash can open at the bottom of their stairs, right on my side, so every week's worth of garbage came raining down into this can. They never cared to clean up the mess, and for ages, left the lid off so every bug and animal in the vicinity got attracted to it. One day, with my husband still deployed, I came home carrying my daughter only to get swarmed, like out of a horror movie, by a black cloud of insects. I know it sounds silly to be afraid of bugs, but I was terrified for my daughter. Sure enough, both of us ended up covered in enormous welts on our arms, the backs of our necks, and even our faces. We both react badly to bites, so our skin became bright, red, angry and itchy. That was the worst time, but it had happened before. That was my breaking point. I snapped photos and contacted the property manager whose information I found outside their house. It was early, a weekend morning, and I had no idea it wasn't some sort of business number. The woman on the other end was furious I'd contacted her so early and outright offended. It quickly became clear she wasn't going to help at all. When I asked for the landlord's number, she got even more bristly. That's when I discovered she wasn't just managing, she owned the damn place. Whatever she told the neighbors, it made it obvious she sided with them, not me. All she did was get them to start closing their trash can, but I could feel it. Now I was being painted as the real problem. If that wasn't bad enough, she also included the downstairs neighbors in her angry group texts. From that moment on, they gave me dirty looks, even though I made it clear I didn't blame them for the trash chaos. It didn't matter. Now my entire row of neighbors knew I was the one making trouble, and they didn't like it. Then summer hit, my husband came home, and the upstairs neighbors' kids started playing outside even more. At first, I felt this unexpected soft spot for them. We didn't live on a cul-de-sac, my street is fast and dangerous, and these kids were so small. I even thought about asking the city if I could paint a hopscotch pad on the sidewalk or put up a free library for them. But there's this blind spot when you turn into my driveway, and one day, the kids were right there, in the middle of it. I stopped my car, probably about 10 feet from them, but it felt so much closer. When I got out, I gently asked them not to play in my driveway, it wasn't safe. They nodded, looking shy, and scurried off. But instead of staying away after that, things escalated. Suddenly, I was the neighborhood outcast. The kids started throwing their toys at our windows and doors, sneaking up at night to sit on our back porch, even showing up around 10 p.m. Then, egged on by the oldest, who was 14, they started smashing a cinder block with a sledgehammer and tossing pieces at my house and windows. And, of course, all this tended to happen whenever my husband was away. One night, after watching the chaos escalate, I finally lost it. I marched outside and told them to get off my property immediately or I'd call the cops. Smirking, the eldest shot back, "Do it. What are they going to do? We're kids. It's a driveway. Get over it." So, I called the police. They showed up, established the property line for everyone, and told the upstairs neighbors we'd start legal action if they kept trespassing. On the officer's advice, I put up huge, colorful no trespassing signs. But the police only intervened so much. After 3 calls, it became clear they couldn't help. No names were shared for me to file a claim, and unless my neighbors were caught on my property in real time, not even my security camera footage could get them cited. Then, while watching my camera feed one day, I saw the kids collecting the broken pieces of cinderblock they'd thrown at my house and throwing them, this time at the downstairs neighbor's dog. At first, I just hoped the dog wasn't outside. But then I saw him on camera, cowering as rocks flew in his direction. That was it. I reported it to animal control, who contacted the downstairs neighbors. They weren't home at the time. Later, the downstairs neighbor came over. I tried to make it clear I wasn't trying to be a nightmare neighbor, that I didn't hate kids, and that actually, I'd noticed her child was the only really well-mannered one. I showed her the footage, and we exchanged phone numbers. I'd love to say we became friends or found some kind of alliance, but I got the sense she was just trying to stay out of the conflict. Not that I could blame her, living with those people above her. The rock stopped getting thrown at the dog after that, but I barely talked to her again. A few weeks later, she did ask if I'd seen who'd stolen her son's bike, but my cameras hadn't picked up anything. Other than that, we didn't interact. The tension in the neighborhood just hung in the air, like it always does. My neighbors had been a nightmare since the day we moved in. Their kids would twerk or flip off our cameras, all while trespassing across our driveway as if it belonged to them. The whole family regularly littered, tossing trash everywhere, and the father made a show of revving his motorcycle as he barreled down the driveway every other day, sometimes coming just inches from our vehicle. We scrimped and saved to put up a fence, collecting every penny until we finally had most of the materials. Once we were ready, we applied for a city permit. Around the same time, we were gifted a lawnmower, and my husband started spending more time outside working on the yard, trying to reclaim at least a bit of peace. Then yesterday, as my husband was doing yard work, the man next door brazenly rode right down our driveway, barely missing him with his motorcycle, which I'm pretty sure was on purpose. Angry words were exchanged. He got off his bike, still parked on our driveway, and, at long last, I learned why he felt entitled to invade our space. "It's just a driveway," he said. "I'm not hurting it, or you, by going down it." My husband argued back, pointing out that not only was he trespassing, but his children had also thrown rocks at our house. Real harm had been done. The man shrugged it off, saying his kids throwing rocks and his own trespassing were separate issues. My husband shot back, "You're a family, it's not separate." Then the man dropped his magnum opus, the reason behind it all. He said his landlord screwed him over and forced him to share a driveway with his downstairs neighbors, so now, somehow, we should have to share ours. He even dared us to call the police. But by then, we didn't need to. Our city permit was processed, and we already had the fence panels ready to go. My husband burst out laughing and told him we had our own solution. A few hours later, the man came home to the sight of my husband putting up fence posts. I could see them standing on their balcony, whispering but loud enough for my husband to hear. The man grumbled, "That that's probably not even the correct line." The woman replied, "It is, because we had the survey and, yes, even the police had told them exactly where the line was." The man muttered, "It's not even that big of a deal." The best part? This fence was going to be gorgeous. My husband's first instinct was a 6-footer, but the city said we couldn't take it all the way to the sidewalk, so we went with beautiful Gothic picket panels instead, planning to stain and seal them with rich cedar. There weren't any Gothic posts in stock, so we improvised with 2x4s and planned to add lovely solar lights on top. We didn't put the fence directly on the property line, but we left them no room to drag their trash can down our driveway, and the motorcycle definitely wouldn't fit. I already had all the plants picked out that I wanted along the fence for next year, though we were pretty broke, so those would have to wait. As much as I wish putting up this fence would be the end of our troubles, I know it probably won't be. But for someone who hates confrontation, finally working on a creative solution was such a relief. Every time I think about them seething inside at the sight of our adorable Gothic fence glowing with its solar lights, it brings me the tiniest bit of joy. I really hope it frustrates them as much as this whole ordeal has frustrated us. Update 1. Apparently, we have to share our driveway because the upstairs neighbors have to share theirs. It's been 3 days since we started building the fence. My husband has managed to get 3 posts in. He's working on it whenever he can between the unpredictable weather, his job, and taking care of our toddler, so, as you can imagine, progress has been pretty slow. We reached out to our bottom neighbor to let them know they might want to move their riding lawn mower, since the spot where it's parked will end up locked in place once the fence is finished. They're working on it now, though it seems the mower's battery is dead. And, drumroll, please, the most surprising thing happened. The wife of the upstairs neighbors actually approached us to politely ask if it was okay for her kid to take their trash can down the driveway one last time. Because of the lineup between the finished posts, he really couldn't do it without asking, so I suppose that forced a moment of civility. It might not seem like a huge victory to most, but, for us, it was the first time anyone from that family asked for anything or showed even a hint of politeness. My husband said it was fine, letting them know that by the time the trash can needed to come back up, the fence would be completed, and they might want to plan ahead. Honestly, getting the trash can away from the property line is a win for us, too, since it's always been annoyingly close to where we need to build. I know it's not the dramatic confrontation you might expect, but I see this small act of grace as a hopeful sign. Maybe, just maybe, this will ease some of their hostility, and the war might finally cool off. But if not, believe me, we're still ready for whatever comes next. Once the fence is up, I'll be sure to capture a photo and keep you updated, especially if hothead dad or the juvenile delinquent son try any tricks in retaliation. Update 2. I am so exhausted by this whole situation. Honestly, I'm at my wit's end. My husband and I have been going out of our way to be respectful to our downstairs neighbors. We even gave them a full week's notice that placing our fence posts and panels would block in their riding lawnmower. These folks aren't the tenants we've had major issues with in the past, but even so, their child and their dog walker have trespassed on our property before. Sometimes, I can't figure out how our house, sitting squarely in the middle of a through street, somehow became the neighborhood alleyway. A week ago, I let them know about the fence, specifically to give them an opportunity to move the lawnmower before it was trapped. At first, the guy came outside, tried to start the thing, but the battery was dead. He told me he needed a couple of days to buy a new one. But, a few days went by and suddenly, crickets. No updates at all. When I checked in again to say my husband wanted to get the fence posts in by the next day, the woman replied that moving the mower wasn't a priority right now. She's dealing with a recent miscarriage, and her partner is supposed to be working on it. I want to be understanding, I really do. We're expecting, I'm 5 months pregnant, and her grief is real. Still, her partner finally got the new battery, managed to start the mower, but for some reason still hasn't actually moved it. Now, it's just sitting there with jumper cables and a gas can next to it, like he's signposting some slow-motion project. That was 2 days ago. Yesterday, he was out back grilling burgers, clearly not worried about moving the mower, and in all this time, neither he nor his partner has told me why they just haven't popped it into neutral and pushed it out of the way. Maybe I've been too much of a doormat. I know I've gone out of my way to be passive, hoping to avoid more conflict. I didn't want to build this fence, honestly, but with everything that's happened, I felt forced to, even if it's a financial stretch for us. But this delay, this endless, silent standoff, is driving me crazy. So, how much longer am I supposed to wait before I just install the post behind the lawnmower and go on with my life? I'm torn, because I don't want to give either set of neighbors a reason to retaliate, but I am also desperate to keep this project moving. Meanwhile, the other neighbors, the ones who used to ignore our property line, are finally respecting it, even moving their trash cans to the other side of their house, which, honestly, was a small miracle in itself. I just want to be done with this, done with the drama, done with the fence, and free to enjoy a little peace for once. Update 3. Well, I guess I should have seen this coming. Things got complicated. So after waiting another 3 days for our downstairs neighbors to move that damn lawnmower, I finally told my husband to just go ahead and put the post in. We'd given them almost 2 weeks, pregnant or not, there comes a point where you have to draw the line. He installed it yesterday evening, and the mower is now officially trapped until they figure out how to get it out. But that's not even the crazy part. This morning, I was coming back from my doctor's appointment. Everything's fine with the baby, thanks for not asking, neighbors, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. The upstairs neighbor's wife, let's call her Sarah, was standing in our downstairs neighbor's backyard, and they were having what looked like a very intense conversation. Not unusual, right? Neighbors talk. Except Sarah was crying, and the downstairs guy, let's call him Mike, had his hand on her shoulder in a way that seemed really intimate. I tried to mind my own business, I really did. But then I noticed Sarah's been coming around a lot more lately, always when her husband's at work. And Mike's girlfriend, the one dealing with the miscarriage, has been working double shifts at the hospital. The timing felt off. 2 hours later, I'm unloading groceries when Sarah knocks on my door. She's obviously been crying, makeup smeared, the whole 9 yards. She asks if we can talk, and before I know it, she's sitting at my kitchen table telling me her life story. Turns out, her husband, the motorcycle guy who's made our lives hell, has been getting increasingly aggressive at home too. She showed me bruises on her arms that she usually covers with long sleeves. Says he's been drinking more since losing his job 3 months ago, which explains why he's home all the time now. The worst part? She thinks he's been taking it out on their kids too, especially the 14-year-old who's been acting out so much. I'm sitting there, 5 months pregnant, trying to process that the family I've been feuding with is basically falling apart. Sarah says she's been talking to Mike because his girlfriend mentioned I seemed reasonable after I showed her the footage of the kids throwing rocks at their dog. Apparently, I'm the only neighbor who hasn't completely written them off. Then she drops the real bombshell. She and Mike have been meeting up because she needs someone to talk to, and it's developed into something more. She's planning to leave her husband but she's terrified about the kids, has nowhere to go, and Mike's been helping her figure out an exit strategy. So now I'm sitting on this information, watching Mike's girlfriend grieve her miscarriage while working extra shifts, probably having no idea her boyfriend is having an affair with our upstairs neighbor who's planning to leave her abusive husband. Oh, and get this, Sarah asks if she and the kids can use our driveway to load up a moving truck next weekend when her husband's supposedly going to visit his brother. She says Mike told her we're good people and might understand. I didn't know what to say, so I told her I needed to talk to my husband. She left, but not before mentioning that her husband's been talking about getting back at us for the fence, and she's worried about what he might do. My husband came home an hour later to find me stress-eating ice cream and having a minor panic attack. When I told him everything, his first reaction was that we're definitely not getting involved in whatever drama is unfolding next door. But then he got quiet and said we might not have a choice. If Sarah's really planning to leave, her husband's going to lose it, and we're the convenient target since we're already on his bad side. The fence is almost done, but suddenly it feels like the least of our problems. I keep looking out the window, watching Mike work on that stupid lawnmower while his girlfriend's at work, wondering if Sarah's going to show up again. Part of me wants to help her, nobody deserves to live in fear. But another part of me is terrified that getting involved will make everything so much worse for us. We've got our own baby coming, and the last thing we need is to be in the middle of whatever explosion is coming when this all falls apart. I have no idea what to do. Do I pretend I never heard any of this? Do I somehow warn Mike's girlfriend? Do I let Sarah use our driveway, knowing it could put us in the line of fire? And meanwhile, that lawnmower is still sitting there, trapped behind our fence post, like some stupid symbol of how complicated everything has become. Update 4. I should have listened to my husband and stayed out of it, but I didn't, and now everything has gone completely sideways. So after my last update, I spent 3 sleepless nights going back and forth about what to do with the Sarah situation. My husband was adamant, we mind our own business, finish the fence, and let the neighbors sort out their own mess. But I kept thinking about those bruises on her arms, and honestly, the kids too. Even the 14-year-old who's been such a pain, if his stepdad's hitting his mom, no wonder he's acting out. I made my decision Thursday morning. Sarah had been texting me, nothing dramatic, just little things like hope you're feeling okay with the pregnancy and thanks for listening the other day. When she asked if we could talk again, I said yes. She came over around noon while her husband was supposedly job hunting, though I suspect he was actually at the bar based on the empties I've been seeing in their trash. This time she seemed more composed, but also more desperate. She said she'd found an apartment about 20 minutes away and could move in next weekend, but she needed help getting her stuff out without him knowing. Here's where I made my first mistake. I said yes to letting her use our driveway. But then she asked for something else. Could she store a few boxes in our garage for a couple days? Just her important documents, some photos, the kids' favorite things, stuff she was worried he might destroy if he found out she was leaving. She'd been slowly moving things to Mike's place, but his girlfriend was starting to ask questions. I should have said no. Instead, I found myself helping her carry 2 small boxes into our garage Friday afternoon. She was crying the whole time, thanking me over and over, saying I was the only person who understood. The boxes weren't big, but they were heavy, felt like books or files. That evening, my husband found out when he went to park in the garage. He was furious with me for getting involved, especially after we'd agreed to stay out of it. We had our first real fight in months. He said I was putting our family at risk for people who'd made our lives hell for over a year. I said I couldn't stand by and watch a woman get beaten while her kids witnessed it. We went to bed angry. Saturday morning, I woke up to pounding on our front door at 7 a.m. It was Sarah's husband, let's call him Derek, and he was clearly drunk or hungover, maybe both. He was demanding to know if I'd seen his wife, shouting that she'd taken his important papers and he knew she'd been talking to neighbors. My husband answered the door while I stayed upstairs with our daughter, but I could hear every word. Derek was accusing us of helping Sarah steal his shit and threatening to call the police on us for theft. My husband kept his cool, said we hadn't taken anything, and Derek needed to leave our property or we'd be the ones calling police. That's when Derek mentioned the boxes. He said Mike had told him Sarah was storing stuff at various neighbors' houses. My heart dropped. Mike had thrown Sarah under the bus to save himself. My husband came upstairs after Derek left and just looked at me. What boxes is he talking about? He asked, though I think he already knew. When I told him about the garage, his face went white. He made me promise that we'd get those boxes out of our house immediately. I tried calling Sarah, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Then I tried texting, nothing. I was starting to panic when I saw Mike in his backyard around noon. I went out to ask if he'd seen her. That's when he dropped the bomb. Sarah never found an apartment. She'd been planning to move in with him, and his girlfriend had figured it out Friday night when Sarah accidentally left her purse in his car. The girlfriend confronted them both, there was a huge fight, and now Mike was trying to salvage his relationship by cutting ties with Sarah completely. So Sarah was essentially homeless with 3 kids and an abusive husband who now knew she'd been planning to leave him. I spent Saturday afternoon trying to figure out what to do with these boxes while my husband worked on the fence, muttering angrily under his breath. Every time I heard a motorcycle or raised voices from next door, my stomach clenched. Then Sunday happened. I was making breakfast when I heard shouting outside. Through the kitchen window, I saw Derek dragging Sarah across their yard by her arm while the kids followed behind, crying. She was screaming that he was hurting her, and I could see a fresh bruise on her face even from a distance. I called 911. I didn't even think about it, I just did it. The police showed up within 10 minutes. They separated Derek and Sarah, talked to the kids, and I thought that would be the end of it. But then one of the officers knocked on our door. Apparently, Derek had told them we were hiding stolen property, specifically, financial documents and some kind of evidence Sarah had taken from their house. The officer was polite but said they needed to check our garage based on his complaint. I had to show them the boxes. My husband stood there in stony silence while I explained how they'd ended up in our garage. The officers said they'd need to take them as evidence and that we might be called as witnesses if charges were filed. But here's the kicker, when they opened the boxes to catalog the contents, it wasn't just documents and photos. There was a handgun wrapped in a towel, and what looked like a significant amount of cash bundled in rubber bands. The officers suddenly got very serious and started asking a lot more questions about how well we knew Sarah and what exactly she'd told us about why she needed to store these items. We had no answers. I realized I'd been completely played. The officers left with the boxes, and Derek was arrested, though I'm not sure if it was for domestic violence or something related to whatever was in those boxes. Sarah and the kids were taken somewhere by social services. Now it's Monday evening, and my husband isn't speaking to me. Mike's girlfriend moved out yesterday. I saw her loading up a U-Haul with her sister. Mike keeps staring at our house whenever he's outside, and I can't tell if he's angry or scared. Our fence is almost finished, but somehow it feels pointless now. We're probably going to have to testify in court about God knows what. My neighbors on both sides hate us for different reasons. And I still have no idea what Sarah got me mixed up in. The worst part? I keep thinking about those kids. The 14-year-old who's been throwing rocks at our house, the little ones who were crying in the yard yesterday, they're all in the system now because their lives completely fell apart. I can't decide if I helped them or made everything worse. My husband was right. We should have minded our own business. Now I'm 5 months pregnant, stressed out of my mind, and somehow involved in what looks like it might be a criminal case. I just wanted the motorcycle to stop using our driveway. How did it turn into this?